Hi everyone, and welcome to the Back Nine. Today we're going to get some great and really valuable information from a master club fitter. Hello, so my friend Nick here knows clubs. He knows drivers, irons, putters, balls. Let's just say Nick knows golf. So Nick, say hi to everyone.
Hello everyone. Thanks for having me, Randy.
Thanks for being here, Nick. So we're going to go over some questions and hopefully you'll find information that you'll be curious about, like the way your clubs are performing, maybe the ball has something to do with it, the shaft. I know all this as a whole affects how you hit the ball, but the only reason I know that is because Nick tells me or gives me advice. So anyway, let's go to the first question, Nick, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you. So I've been in the fitting side of the golf business for a little over 5 years now. I've actually been primarily here at Golfdom in Tysons Corner, Virginia. I am the director of fitting here. So some decent experience, worked for Callaway a little bit as well, and a couple other golf shops in the past. But this is primarily where I've been and where I've gotten most of my experience. I love it here. I think it's a great facility. We sell just about everything under the sun, so if you ever need anything, come see us.
That's great. Yeah, I've been coming here since they've been open, but I've been working with Nick since he started here, and he's been through 3 or 4 knee operations.
Couple.
And my game has really changed. So he has really helped me adapt to my lower swing speed, my inability to fully rotate with a swing, all that combined. So the first question, Nick, of all the people you've fitted over the years, what would you consider a mid-handicapper?
In terms of handicap level, a mid-handicapper in my mind is like a 10 to a 18 or so, probably around high 80s to high 90s, somewhere in there, kind of a mid-handicapper.
So most of the people that you fit, would you consider fit into that description?
Absolutely, definitely. And the majority of people for sure.
The single-digit handicappers really in the top couple percentile, right?
I'd say 5 to 10%.
Interesting.
Yep.
So this is why I hope this information really speaks to all of you. And we're going to start out by asking Nick, what are some of the misconceptions you see most when a mid to high level handicapper comes in for a fitting? Now I know for myself, I never say anything on the course, but if we get matched up with a stranger in a foursome or something, sometimes I'll see him hitting blades and he can't break 100. Mm-hmm. Now, I understand golf is physical and visual, mm-hmm. so he may like looking at those. But in my head, I want to tell him, hey, try these, you'll really have more fun.
Yes, I would say that's probably one of the biggest misconception, maybe not as the best word to put it, but one of the biggest kind of hurdles as a fitter is to get over the kind of ego, so to speak, that some golfers have. And that's kind of a nail on the head situation, playing something a little bit smaller than they actually should in terms of the profile, i.e. blades instead of cavity back clubs. They're certainly losing some forgiveness with the smaller sweet spots on the blades, larger sweet spot with the cavity back. As well, with more cavity, you have more weight further down and further back in the club, which helps get the ball up in the air quicker and easier.
Which I know for slow swingers,
that's the name of the game.
I've learned recently after my last knee surgery that I need more spin, not less, the drivers and irons.
Correct. Keep the ball in the air. That's one of the biggest. Another big misconception is that backspin is bad, and that's not actually the case. Too much can be bad, but it's not always bad because backspin just keeps the ball in the air. So it's actually going to help you maximize your carry distance, which is a good thing. Carry distance is reliable distance. Total distance is great. It's great to hit the ball farther, but if you can't control it and you can't consistently hit that same number, then it's not really any good to hit the ball farther if we don't know where it's going to go.
Now, along with that, play shafts. Mm-hmm. Because I know guys my age and older who still insist on playing stiff. Mm-hmm. And while they can hit it straight, they're hitting their 8-iron like 110 yards. Do you see that a lot too?
Yes, I'd say the shift has gotten better with shafts specifically over the past couple of years, just because of the technology in shafts, and now there's a lot more to choose from. ultimately the shaft is the engine of the club. So if you are driving a club or swinging a club that doesn't have the right engine, it's not going to work properly for you. So in your example, guys that don't have the club head speed are still swinging stiff shafts when they probably should be swinging regular flex or even senior or light flex, are actually doing themselves a disservice by doing that. Yes, it's what they've been swinging forever and what they maybe like the feel of because a regular or a senior flex is too soft. Well, that's ultimately, like you said, going to give them more fun out on the course because they're not going to have to work as hard, and it's going to perform ultimately more consistently and better. It's going to give them better launch, better spin, better total distance, ball speed. Everything is going to be improved with the proper shaft.
I can attest to that because in the last 6 months, my game has changed dramatically because of my knees, and I'm learning a ton about spin from Nick, not only the shaft, the ball, but the club head. And how that helps me now. So Nick knows what he's talking about because I'm proof on the course. I'm hitting the ball better. Let's talk about drivers.
Yeah.
So the 10 today, with a lot of the club manufacturers, to make lower and lower spinning driver heads. And some of them are a little sneaky. So like Ping has the G410 Plus, which I wouldn't consider a high spinning driver.
Not really.
No, and then they also make a low spin back. Same with like the Sub-Zero, same with the TaylorMade clubs, the M5s, and now the Sim. I know with my club head speed, I can't hit these clubs.
Right.
I get no lift. They're less forgiving for me, for sure, and I get less carry. Does that pretty much go with? I mean, what happens if someone comes in and they say, hey, I just want a low spin because that's what I see on TV and everyone's advertising?
And I would say that is what we hear and see most, is that people aren't really necessarily sure if they need or should have lower spin than they have, because most people don't know where they're spinning it right now. They see, the typical launch that they have, and maybe it's higher than their buddies, so they think they hit it too high or spin it too much because they're not hitting it as far as their buddy. But in reality, once we get them on a monitor, they could be launching it and spinning it exactly where they need to. They just maybe need a different club head that's going to generate more ball speed. But you can't really judge a book by its cover, in the sense that you can't really tell if it's the right launch and spin conditions just based on a ball flight that you see outside. You really got to see the numbers to know if it's optimized. Launch and spin are a give and take. So the higher we launch it, the lower we want to spin it so that it's not ballooning. The lower we launch it, the higher we want to spin it so that, again, we keep it in the air. As I mentioned, backspin isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
We need, especially in a driver, we need enough spin to keep that ball in the air. Otherwise, it's just going to be a knuckleball that dives out of the sky.
It also makes it's more forgiving for me.
100%.
With that spin.
Backspin reduces side spin. So the more backspin we have, the less side spin we have. So the less left and right we see.
So I hope you guys are getting the impression, we're just touching on the first part of this, how important a fitting is. I can tell you from my experience, I have had several shaft fittings, and I know now with the shaft that I'm fit for, I can put it in almost any of these club heads, except the low spin ones, and get 10 to 20 yards more than the stock shaft because I was fitted for that shaft, and now I'm fitted for the right club head, so the combination's perfect. Let's move on to irons. Muscle back versus cavities. That's kind of the same discussion we had earlier. I know you have a blade, you have a muscle back, you have a small cavity, and then you move into the middle and the high handicappers, game improvement irons.
And super game improvement now too. They're making hybrid irons now. So there's.
Well, isn't a company kind of marketing their irons as hybrid-like?
So there are companies that have specific, they call them like hybrid irons, and it's essentially a full iron set of hybrids. They replace all of the heads with hybrid style heads. So there's, again, a lot more mass further down and further back. The more mass you have in the bottom of the club, the easier it is to get the ball up in the air. That's really the name of the game with the larger profiles. More mass further down makes the sweet spot larger and helps get the ball up in the air quicker and easier.
So I know, I can relate to some people because when I grew up playing golf, they didn't have cavity backs. The first irons that came out were the Ping Eyes, and they were like revolutionary with how their perimeter weighting was. But I know, I've tried cavity backs. I've tried some of these smaller profile, kind of look like cavity backs, but for performance irons like P790s and Mizuno HMBs and stuff like that. So I think we all probably know who should be playing pure cavity backs or muscle backs, single digit handicappers. And even that, they start to want game improvement.
Right. Why sacrifice the forgiveness?
Right. So is there, other than look, which I'm a little visual, I don't like a big chunky looking iron, and I've learned through you why I don't. But when most people come in, the best advice is get fit, right? And then get fit with the type of head, not so much just the shaft and the other specs, but the type of head that would benefit you most. I assume you can see that once they hit a couple balls.
Immediately. Yeah. Usually I can actually judge it before even having them hit any golf balls based on what clubs they're already playing. So I've got a good idea when they bring their old clubs in, I can see, okay, they're already playing cavity backs or they're playing muscle backs, and they told me that they only play 5 times a year and they shoot 80s. They probably shouldn't be playing muscle backs, so I can tell them pretty quickly that we're going to be getting some cavity in their hands and getting those blades out of their bags. And usually they can see pretty dramatically, or pretty
really quickly
that it's a dramatic change. It's
I bet.
It's a pretty big difference, yes.
And can you explain to the people like who should use offset irons? Now I know there's everything from minimal to a lot of offset. How does that fit into the different type of golfers you fit?
Yeah, so offset is really, it's mainly for people who fade or slice the ball. So offset simply moves the leading edge of the iron further back. So the more offset you have, the more the leading edge is further back, essentially getting your hands ahead of the club head. So the people who fade or slice the ball have a tough time squaring or closing the face. So offset, by moving the leading edge further back, just gives them more time to get the face square. It also puts the center of mass or the weight further down and further back, which also helps get the ball up in the air. 2 things that usually a mid to high handicap struggles with: turning the ball over or hitting it straighter and getting it up in the air. The more offset you have, the easier it is to do that.
So in conjunction with that, I'm a picker. And I know there are wide bottom soles and thinner bottom soles. I don't do good with wide bottom soles. I hit them fat.
Correct.
And I do much better with thinner soles. Why is that?
Essentially the footprint. So typically with someone who's a picker, the interaction with the turf with a wider sole is essentially behind the ball. Whereas someone who hits down on it typically will hit down on the golf ball and then continue their divot ahead of it.
Right.
So the sole isn't impacting the turf interaction as much. As a picker, who again, usually their contact, if anything, is going to be closer to the ball or behind the golf ball, and a wider sole is going to cause that club to bounce before the ball, causing that thinner shot.
Yeah, I mean, Nick knows. I've tried for years to hit ping irons. Now, I like the I200s, but they didn't really give me distance that I'm looking for now. But this year I've tried the G410s and some other irons that have that fatter sole, because I want to get the help with lift and everything. I hit them fat. So it 100% makes sense to me now why I need to look at thinner sole
Correct.
irons. Okay.